Tonight on The Roast, climate change costs money and Iran disqualifies a politician for being too attractive. But first, take a breath and sit back from your TV sets because Mark Humphries has another wrap-up from the past 24 hours on the campaign trail.
Federal opposition leader Tony Abbott was on the campaign trail this morning, appearing on the Kyle and Jackie O show, the home of vigorous political debate and the birthday wheel. Mr. Abbott seemed to enjoy being the least sexist man on the show, and instead of avoiding questions like in other interviews, Tony was the one asking the questions, specifically to American pop star Katy Perry.
When are you coming back? We need you. We want you. When are you coming back?
Oh, come on, that's not a political question. Let's talk about gay marriage.
I know people striving for equality makes me laugh, but Katy wasn't having a bar of it.
Yeah, well, I love you as a human being, but I can't give you my vote then.
You blew it, Tony. You lost the vote of some person that doesn't live here. Meanwhile, Liberal frontbencher Christopher Pyne has defended a volunteer accused of interfering with Labor Party posters. Police have cautioned the woman, but Pyne claims that she was fixing them for the Labor Party because they'd been so poorly put up. First they screw up pink bats, and now they screw up their posters. So vote Liberal if you care about the state of ALP posters. And following on from Tony Abbott's gaffe about the sex appeal of Liberal candidate Fiona Scott, former Labor leader Mark Latham has out-gaffed the gaff master.
I've had a good look at Fiona Scott on page 8 of The Australian today, and I don't think she's got sex appeal at all.
Latham had a good look. Let that picture settle in your mind while you eat your custard.
And I'd rather have an aspirant for the Prime Ministership who's a good judge when it comes to checking out the good sorts, as many Australian men do.
And Latham's clearly the man for the job. So if you'd like a Prime Minister who's a good judge when it comes to checking out the good sorts, you know who to vote for when you go to the polls in 2004. For a man who lost an election, he sure doesn't mind playing the expert. And in the words of myself, when I eat a Magnum ice cream covered in chocolate, then covered in caramel, then covered in chocolate, what an ego! For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Mark Latham. Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. So for more on that, let's check in with Nick Richardson.
Mark William Latham has been many things. The Ducks of his high school, the Mayor of Liverpool, the leader of the Federal Labor Party, an author, a columnist and even a current affairs reporter. But there's no doubt he'll always be best known to Australians for his work as a shit-stirrer. Mark Latham is one of Australian politics' most prolific shit-stirrers. To this day, he's the only Australian politician to publish his own parliamentary burn book, 2005's The Latham Diaries, in which he referred to Prime Minister John Howard as an arse licker and a smelly little bastard, and his own Labor leader Kim Beazley as a dirty dog that was not fit to clean the toilets at Parliament House. And over the years, Latham's been determined to maintain the high standard of shit-stirring he set in the mid-2000s, be it by accusing Julia Gillard of lacking empathy because she decided not to have children, or declaring that Prime Minister Kevin Rudd is in the realm of evil. But for the 2010 election, he stepped it up a notch, filing his own report for 60 Minutes where he nabbed the shit-stirrer trifecta by ambushing the Prime Minister, interviewing Pauline Hanson, and encouraging Australians on national television to put a blank piece of paper into the ballot box on election day, as it was
the ultimate protest vote.
So will this shit-stirrer secure another shit-stirring trifecta in the 2013 election? Only one person knows the answer to that, Mark William Latham. So I'll let him have the final word.
In politics they say that it's showbiz for ugly people, and I don't think she'll be out of place.
Yeah, he's a shit-stirrer.
Next up tonight, according to the Climate Institute, the Coalition will need to spend a further $4 billion above what it has currently budgeted if it wants to meet Australia's pledge to cut carbon emissions by 5% by 2020. Yet because the Coalition keeps telling us that Australia now looks like this, it might be difficult to find those extra billions and save the environment. But what a choice! The environment versus the economy, money versus all of life itself. And yet, during the election campaign, we really do need to wrestle with complex questions like this.
Climate change plan. These are the articles I should be reading.
Yeah, it is complicated to understand, and it's complicated to really understand how the coalition's policy, as it is currently defined, would see Australia's emissions rise about 9% by 2020. To simplify that, a 9% emissions rise would be equivalent to doubling the number of cars on Australia's roads. So if you hate traffic now, imagine what it will be like in 2020 when the Earth no longer exists. To avoid that future, let's hear what the government and the opposition are planning to do. Jazz Twemlow, environment?
This is the environment, or as you might know it, green shit and insects that haven't been turned into an iPhone yet. Protecting it is apparently a waste of time, as the only reward is the promise of continued human existence. But who wants to keep living? So all the better we continue wiping ourselves off the face of the earth like a conscious poo that for some reason knows how to use toilet paper. Looking at the party's carbon policies, they're not too keen on human survival either. The coalition will need to find an extra $4 billion to protect the environment, or roughly 1/8 the cost to build their shit internet. So vote Liberal if you want YouTube videos of cats doing funny things in a post-human wasteland that won't buffer. And even if the coalition does manage to find that $4 billion, they still might not be able to save us conscious poos, because their policy is centred on paying big polluters to voluntarily reduce their emissions, or, to put it another way, they're going to financially reward irresponsible people for not doing something terrible.
Present me's enjoying these hamburgers, but I know future me will suffer. No, I won't eat that hamburger.
How responsible? Have some money. However, it now sounds like the coalition is being forced to pay even more of the money we can't apparently afford to ensure the environment doesn't threaten us anymore.
All right, environment, we're agreed. $4 billion and I don't sleep with the fishes.
The sea levels will stay where they are, for now.
The environment will kill us all. But let's move on to Labour. Following on from the Papua New Guinea solution to asylum seekers, Labour is trying offshore processing again by paying other countries to offset our carbon emissions for us. I've adopted the same logic with my calorie intake. For example, you might wonder how it is I'm able to continuously gatto from this miniature gluttony trough and not bleed cream. It's because I'm paying someone else to exercise for me.
You better be enjoying his gatto.
I am. Now, you may not have wanted to read about all the intricacies of Labour and the coalition's ham-fisted climate change policies that will definitely destroy us all, because when faced by the intellectual Everest represented by words and numbers in your language, it's easy to be distracted by a picture of a hat on a man on a snail on a train. Yes, well done, MS Paint. You're a journalist. So, if these boring facts that could save us all have been too difficult to understand, here's a Photoshop I made of a sad Earth with a novelty hat. Hey, now I'm the journalist. Back to you, Tom.
Finally tonight, Iran, the country best known for its performance in the film Argo, has disqualified a female politician for being too attractive. Nina Siakali Moradi won her seat in the polls, but was then barred from taking office in the city of Kazvin when religious conservatives said her campaign posters did not observe Islamic codes and were vulgar and anti-religious. Now, before we show you that poster, just a warning. If there are any young children in the room who happen to be religious conservatives currently sitting on the Kazvin Council, they may find this image disturbing. Yet somehow a poster that was too vulgar also featured a face that was deemed too attractive. So much so that conservatives said, we don't want a catwalk model on the council. And rightly so, because we all know how dangerous it can be when men and attractive women are allowed to work together.
Hey, do you know the extension for accounts?
So hot!
Okay.
So at least Australia's not the only country where old, gross men are debating a female politician's sex appeal. Though it's a shame that other country had to be Iran, which was last year ranked 127th out of 135 countries in gender equality. For more analysis, we'll cross now to Clark Richards. We'll leave Clark Richards there, and instead Nick Richardson joins me in the studio.
This is a real problem, Tom. We need to level the playing field so that hot politicians aren't disadvantaged by their hotness. I mean, apparently people in Iran will only listen to someone who isn't hot, while in Australia, Abbott says we should vote for someone who is hot. I mean, sex appeal is having an effect on politics when it shouldn't even be part of the equation.
Yeah, but I don't know how we'd go.
I mean, Labor almost had it right with their faceless men, but as far as I'm concerned, they didn't take it far enough. Their hot faces were gone, but we need to get rid of these gorgeous bodies entirely.
Yeah, but how would we
We
actually
need to implement some sort of compulsory morph suit for all politicians.
Hang on, everyone would have
But then
to...
we'd probably still find some way to discriminate against candidates based on the shadowy suggestion of their genitals. So to obscure their junk, we need to put all candidates in giant Zorbs. I mean, everyone loves a Zorb. You can't tell what someone's package looks like when they're in a Zorb. Then we could all keep it in our pants and get down to the business of governing.
Vote Ball for PM.
That sexless ball could really get shit done. He's got my vote.
And you think just by removing someone's sex appeal altogether, that's the only solution?
Apparently, because it appears qualifications don't count for shit. Watch it.
Good night.
I'm off.
If elected the world's first bald Prime Minister, I would lead the nation on a platform of responsible economic management. I would push for increased funding into renewable energy sources and would introduce a conscience vote on same-sex marriage within the first 99 days of taking office. Vote 1, Ball for PM.